Frank most often interacted with Nordics and Greys, but occasionally he encountered other ET species. One night in Northern California, Frank was giving a UFO talk, and as he often did, he telepathically invited the ETs to show up for the group. The ETs responded by saying that most people in the group were not ready to meet them face to face. After the meeting, Frank quietly approached Elizabeth and Eva, two women who had seen ET ships before. He invited them to go with him to meet the ETs in a secluded wooded area nearby. After a 15-minute drive, they got out of their car and walked through thick underbrush into the woods. After a few minutes, they saw the pulsating whitish-blue glow of a small saucer-like ship descend from the sky and hover above the ground about 150 feet away. Using the tree silhouetted in front of the spaceship for comparison, Frank estimated it to be about 40 to 50 feet wide. As they walked close to the ship, an oval-shaped door opened like an iris, and they could see two ETs in the doorway. One was a 6-foot-tall Nordic man and the other was a Nordic woman about 5.5 feet tall. The two ETs came out of the ship, floated to the ground, and walked towards him. When the third ET came through the door, Frank saw that it was much different. He estimated it to be about 8 feet tall with grayish skin and a long angular somewhat humanoid face. The tall ET seemed to float a little above the ground with a long robe that extended over its feet, although Frank couldn't be sure that it had any feet. "Wow," Frank said. He was impressed with its size. That guy would make a terrific basketball player, 8 feet tall and can float on air. Frank walked forward after motioning for Elizabeth and Eva to stay behind temporarily. He knew that some people often are afraid of meeting the ETs. The two Nordics greeted Frank telepathically, but the tall ET was distant and made no contact. The Nordic male told Frank that they had come from a base on Venus and that the tall ET was from a base ship orbiting Saturn. As Frank watched, the Nordic female reached down and lightly touched a knob-like device on her belt. It was several inches wide, silvery, and metallic looking. Frank wondered what she was doing, and she answered telepathically, "Sometimes, Earth's gravity is uncomfortable for us when we first leave our ship. I was adjusting it lower." Still curious, Frank asked, "How much lower?" She responded, "I prefer it to be closer to the gravity of your moon." Frank remembered the U.S. moon landings, where the astronauts were hopping around under the moon's low gravity, which is about 1/6 that of Earth. He could see why that would be more comfortable. Frank asked them if it was okay for the two women to walk forward. The Nordics said okay, so Frank turned and motioned for the two of them to walk toward them. To everyone's surprise, Eva walked up to the ET group and continued walking right through the tall Saturnian as if it weren't there. The tall ET showed no reaction, and no one else mentioned it. The two women greeted the ETs verbally. The two Nordics responded telepathically, and they all heard it, but once again the Saturnian didn't respond. Afterward, Frank questioned Elizabeth and Eva. They both mentioned seeing the two Nordics, but Eva, the lady who walked through the alien, was the only one who had not seen the Saturnian. She was puzzled and irritated that the others thought there were 3 ETs. She insisted there were only 2 Nordics. Later, Frank explained why many people like Eva don't see ETs in their ships when they are in front of them. Most ETs, although living in our physical universe, function at a higher rate of vibration than we do, and so they are invisible to us. That's the same way that dark matter and dark energy are part of our physical universe, but invisible to us. In order to see most ETs, they have to move down in vibration, and simultaneously, we have to step up to higher consciousness, something like going high in meditation. They can always see us from their higher vibration, but we can only see them under the right conditions. For the two women, Elizabeth was able to move up, but Eva could not go high enough. Frankly, the ethereal Saturnian didn't seem interested in seeing any of them anyway. Kind of an ET snob. In this account by Frank, the ETs appeared to come out of the ship through an iris-like door. Among ET reports, it is common to read descriptions of ET doors and windows that almost magically open without any moving parts. This iris effect is an essential clue to alien technology. Orfeo Angelucci wrote, I saw the walls appeared to be noiselessly moving to close the aperture to the outside. In a few seconds, the door had vanished, with no indication that there had ever been an entrance. Howard Menger wrote, the blond man went to the wall of the craft where we had entered, passed his hand over a pulsating blue light to the right, and again the invisible door opened out of nowhere. He beckoned, and I got up quickly and walked to the opening. Again, he passed his hand over the blue light, and the door disappeared. Menger described another similar incident. Soon an opening appeared on a flange around the bottom of the craft. It is difficult to describe the opening because it wasn't there one moment, and the next moment it was. The best I can describe it is to compare it to the opening of an iris in a camera lens. Later, he saw it ramp to one of the saucer-like ships being retracted, and after it did, an iris-like door closed behind it. So, how did the ETs do this? How do doorways just seem to open magically? Whitley Strieber writes that one of the ETs told him the answer, we rearrange atoms. The Nordics told Frank the same thing. British science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke said it best, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.